So start up for week number 16. Number 1, it says to classify negative 7x to the 5th minus 6x to the 4th plus 4x to the 3rd by degree and number of terms. In order to classify it by degree, we look at the greatest degree, and the greatest degree is found by the largest exponent. It is the 5th exponent. So in order to name this by exponent, this would be a quintic. And by the number of terms, we have 1, 2, 3 terms, so that is a quintic trinomial. Very important that we make sure that we learn all of our degrees of the different, if it's 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree, 4 degree, 5, and so forth. So that is a quintic trinomial. Number 2, it says write 4x squared times negative 2x squared plus 5x cubed in standard form, then classify it by degree and number of terms. In order to write it in standard form, we first must multiply, distribute, combine like terms if there are any, and then put it in standard form. So when we multiply, we're going to have 4x squared, and just so some of you can see it better, I'm going to write it out this way. Plus 4x squared times 5x to the 3rd. Do you have to write it that way? No. We know that. But just so we can see it. So I'm going to multiply 4 times negative 2, which gives me negative 8. X squared times x squared. I will add those exponents. So it gives me x to the 4th. Plus 20x to the 5th. So I've multiplied it. Now I need to put it in standard form. Standard form is decreasing exponents from left to right. So that is now standard form. It says then classify it by its degrees and number of terms. Well, based upon degree, that is a quintic again, but this time it is a binomial. There's only 2 terms. Number 3, write the expression as a polynomial in standard form. In order to write it in standard form, we must multiply here. Again, this time, since I have a binomial times a binomial, don't treat it as full, but treat it as taking that first value and distributing it to both numbers. So I have x times x, which is x squared, x times a negative 4, negative 4x. And then take that second number and distribute it to the others. So 6 times x is 6x, 6 times a negative 4 is negative 24. And I write it vertically like that so we can see which are the like terms right now. We don't have to scroll through if it's written horizontally and check, and we can just add straight up and down. So x squared, then a negative 4x and positive 6x would be plus 2x minus 24. That is standard form. And that's all we're asked to do there.
You got 6 or 5 this week?
6. Number 4. See if we can't move that up. Number 4 says write 4x cubed plus 8x squared minus 96x in factored form. First of all, my first step and first rule of all factoring is a GCF. Check to see if it has a GCF. Notice all 3 of those numbers has a 4, and all 3 of those values have an x. So I can factor out a 4x. So that will leave me x squared plus 2x minus, is that 24? There's our factored form.
What you do?
Or not factored form. That's just taken out of GCF. When we take out a GCF, we are simply dividing each of those terms. So if I'm looking here, 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 96 divided by 4, or negative 96 divided by 4 is negative 24. Now, are we finished? No. We have a trinomial. We need to look to see if it'll factor. What two numbers can I multiply together to get negative 24? And what same two numbers can I add to get positive 2? 4 and 6, 6 and 4. Either way works. But we've got to have one of them as a negative. And the way that we determine which one is negative is by this 2. That tells me the larger number will take this sign right here. So it's going to be positive 6 and negative 4. Therefore, my factors are, of course, I'm going to bring down the 4x. I'm going to have x minus 4, x plus 6. And that is the factored form for number 4. Number 5. Here it says find the zeros of y equals x times x minus 3 times x minus 2. Then graph. I'm not interested in graphing. I am interested in the zeros right now. So in order to find zeros, this is zero product property. We factored this out, and now all we have to do is set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So x equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0, x minus 2 equals 0. And I'm going to solve each one of those equations. X minus or x equals 0 is already solved. Can't do anything to that. Here I can move that across, so x equals 3. And here I can move it across, so x equals 2. So if we were to graph, what that means is on the graph of 0, 1, 2, and 3, those are all 3 places where this graph would cross the x-axis. It is being a cube, so it is down up, so it looks something like so. And lastly, number 6. We are asked to write a polynomial function in standard form with the following zeros. So we're working backwards. If our zeros are 5, negative 4, and 1, we will set it up as x minus 5 times x minus a negative 4 and x minus 1. And from here we multiply out. That is factored form. We want to multiply it out. Here we start distributing. So we have x squared plus 4x. I will then multiply negative 5x, negative 5 times x, and 4. And notice I'm going to do this vertically so we can see all of our even factors, or like terms. So that gives us x squared minus 1x minus 20. And that solution will now be multiplied times x minus 1. So I'm going to say my x times all 3 of these values. So x times x squared is x cubed. X times a negative 1x is negative x squared. X times negative 20 is negative 20x. I will now multiply negative 1 times all 3 of these values. And all that does is change our signs of the following. Notice we have written it vertically. So now we can combine our like terms. So x cubed minus 1x squared and 1x squared gives us negative 2x squared. Negative 20x and positive 1x is negative 19x. And plus 20. That is standard form for the equation of the polynomial that have the zeros of 5, -4, and 1. And there's our startup for week number 16.